For the last several months, Tigray has been embroiled in a crisis where the ruling party, TPLF, of course, the most dominant party in the region, TPLF, have been going through all sorts of crises. And the senior commanders were largely involved in trying to find an amicable solution, or to impose an amicable solution on groups who had difficulty seeing eye to eye on a number of issues. So when the faction led by the chairperson decided to register itself in the federal government and conduct Congress, we had reason to believe that the Congress they were concocting was not only below standard, but more importantly divisive in its nature, and of course not in a position to come up with anything that would herald a better future for Tigray. So we begged to differ. So it conducted a Congress which the federal government, which registered the party in the first place, deemed illegal and unacceptable. And this faction of the TPLF took it upon itself to declare that the interim administration belonged to it, and of course it was within its right to restructure, not to restructure, essentially to destroy the interim administration and replace with its own. But the federal government and other entities begged to differ, because the interim administration was the result of an outcome of the agreement between the federal government and the TPLF, whatever technical defects it might have. But after that, there was a tendency among the top brass in the Tigray army leadership to try and impose what they believed was a legitimate faction, that particular faction as a legitimate one, and try and force a will on the interim administration. And although at the outset we had a number of discussions with the top leadership, and of course we had reason to believe that most of them were convinced that there was not the best interventions they could make under circumstances. The TPLF faction, which was hell-bent on taking over Tigray, of course for all the nefarious causes that it wants to put in place, it kept on working on the lower rung of the military leadership, and they decided that this illegal faction was a legitimate one. And it's not within their prerogative. It is one thing to say that you support this group or that group, but it's entirely different to try and use force to impose your will on the people of Tigray. And the interim administration is only an interim one, and of course whatever arrangements are going to be made to replace the president or the cabinet members should be done in consultation with the federal government. Of course, the federal government said as much, but they wouldn't stop. So they kept on trying, and of course the process of delegitimizing the interim administration itself started to gather steam since of late. And you know, it was my view, and of course a very considered one, that the army commanders should have focused more on making sure that the army either goes, you know, a chunk of it has to go through PDR, a chunk of it needs to be maintained, but it needs to be taken care of in a number of ways. Rather than focusing on the part of their responsibility, they started interfering with the domestic politics. And of course that started to play havoc with the way the interim administration conducted its.
Has it been a moment since they already announced in a statement that they support one faction of the TPLF? I mean, why is it now that you have to...
No, this time around they are actually taking all the steps needed to implement their so-called decision. They are breaking in government offices. They are removing interim administration officials, and of course it has created confusion not only in the public, but more importantly even within the army itself. So it was my considered opinion.
Very specifically.
Well, this happened in Sahatis, well, in northwestern Tigray and central Tigray. This has happened several months ago, and officials who've been appointed by the interim administration are now displaced from their locations. You know, we have been working on internally displaced people to return them to western Tigray, but now we have more displaced people from other parts of Tigray, simply because they happen to be appointed of the interim administration. So they wanted to take over the entire Tigray. And what I have been trying to do is to try and reason with them that rather than going ahead with that harebrained plan, it would be entirely appropriate for them to make sure that the interim administration function properly. Now, they wanted to impose their version of a legitimate decision on Southern Tigray, Southeastern Tigray, Eastern Tigray, Magala. That's where I gave instruction to the Vice President, who technically is head of the armed forces, to try and take necessary steps to stop such madness. He wouldn't act, so rather than risking the disintegration of the armed forces and the destabilization of the entire region, and more importantly, the unraveling of the Pretoria process. So I just gave orders to this front commanders to temporarily suspend their command prerogatives. I don't think they have taken it all too well, of course, obviously. And now they are in full swing trying to upend whatever has been achieved by the Pretoria process. And we have reason to believe that what they are trying to do not only is antithetical to the Pretoria arrangement, but equally, if not more importantly, they will plunge the entire Tigray into a conflict. And that needs to be stopped, and is stopped in a manner that gives hope and sort of stability to the people. It's very unfortunate. We have reason to believe that external forces are involved in this, and I still hope against hope that this decision will be stopped. But at this point in time, the very parties to the Pretoria Agreement, the federal government, the international community, should really take into account the deteriorating situation in Tigray and the far-reaching ramifications of the unraveling of the Pretoria agreements. And so whatever support, whatever intervention there could be, I think is totally warranted at this point in time. And it's not a question of removing a president or a cabinet member. More importantly, it's about maintaining that modicum of peace that has been held together by the Pretoria agreement.
But my question was, I mean, why do you issue a statement yesterday? Well, I mean, you told me that they started in northwestern Tigray and central Tigray, and now coming to Magala in the some zone of Tigray. I mean, why not earlier?
Well, we're hoping that, that there appear to be some understanding among the top brass. It's only when we realized that these people were totally unhinged and they just wanted to go ahead with their plans, despite whatever arguments we make in our meetings, they would have none of it. So they had different plans than what they keep telling me was the case. So better late than never.
How about their responses?
What?
How about the response from the security office?
Well, that's the most inappropriate and probably the most revealing in terms of what their intentions are. So obviously, rather than portraying the armed forces as belonging to the people of Tigray, they are telling us the armed forces belong to an illegal faction of the TPLF.
So what's next if they do not accept?
Of course, well, there are people who will not accept, do not accept their decision. And of course, whatever nefarious plans they have against the interim administration is also a plan against the Pretoria arrangement itself. So partners of the Pretoria arrangement, including the federal government, have a stake here, and they are duty bound to say something and act upon it, whatever the nature of that action is going to be. So my position is that what they are trying to do is against the interest of the Tigrayan public. It's against peace, it's against stability, more importantly, it's divisive, and it will land us in a situation, in a very unenviable situation, because every want to have an axe to grind with either the federal government or other forces who are involved in this process are trying to take advantage of such a vacuum. So it's a crisis in full bloom.
Earlier today, TPLF official in the Facebook page posted that the mayor office in Adigrat has been retaken. Do you know about this development?
Yes, and that's pretty much what they plan to do, not just in Adigrat. They want to do it in Magala, they want to do it everywhere. Taking over government offices on behalf of an illegal faction of the TPLF in using Tigray People's Forces. That is totally unacceptable, and that is a prescription for more disaster to come. That's why I am trying to do everything within my power to stop that madness. Whether I have the capacity to stop that madness is an entirely different matter. But like I said, the international community should step up to the plate and tell these people that their madness.
What are exactly the things in your power to stop the things?
Well, I'm just calling on the public to say no. I'm calling on the members of the armed forces to resist such an illegal command by people who've been suspended from that position.
How about administrative decisions?
Well, administrative decisions, you just take administrative decisions to remove. But what other decisions are you having in mind?
Okay, how about any likelihood for reconciliation?
You don't reconcile over which illegal activity to endorse or not. I'm not interested in holding on to this position or that position. You know, one of the issues they raise is there are Warada councils that need to be restructured or whatever. So we have, the interim administration has clearly stated that whatever issues there are, we can address them through law and through other instruments of law. I mean, legislations, we have legislations in place. And the army top brass consider themselves a class in their own. So they don't subscribe to any notion of rule of law and all that. So, you know, one of the excruciatingly funny things the so-called Security Bureau had to say was that the government was standing in the way of their decision to maintain law and order. But these people have been resisting the idea of putting in jail people who have been involved in all sorts of crimes, including gold smuggling, including human trafficking and all that. So these people haven't done anything as regards such heinous crimes that have been committed against the people of Tigray, and yet now snatching stamps in every village obviously is being characterized as a resolve to maintain law and order, and that's preposterous.
How about your relationships with the federal government?
Well, our relationship with the federal government is quite simple. We want to see the terms of the Pretoria Agreement implemented. We want to maintain peace. We want to make sure that the people of Tigray see the dividends of peace, and of course engage in all sorts of rehabilitation, recovery and reconstruction efforts. Very unfortunate, two years on, we still have a long way to go before we can say anything meaningful about this part of our commitment. It's very unfortunate. We've been embroiled in all kinds of political wrangling because of a faction in the TPLF which is hell-bent on maintaining its monopoly over power throughout Tigray, come hell or high water. And that's very unfortunate, because these people who are long past their sell-by date still want to impose themselves on the people of Tigray. And of course the people of Tigray need change, and it's quite obvious. No one and nobody is going to stop it. But it's very unfortunate that these senior commanders, some of the senior commanders, are taking the side of reaction, not the side of change.
Have you seen drones in Mali or in Wara?
Well, I heard about them, but I haven't seen any.
I got reports that drones were in Mali and Wara. Isn't that hostile action against the
you know, there is a war of orders with Eritrea, and I have reason to believe that the Eritreans have to take advantage of the situation, and I wouldn't be surprised if...
Do you not think the administration in Tigray should know about this?
Well, there are planes which hover over the skies of Tigray, international flights. Well, we are part of the Federation, and I would always...
I mean, there is a difference between civilian flights and drones.
No, I would always, you know, I had lodged a complaint that if the drone activities are around Mali, that's totally unacceptable. But I'm not going to say whether in their engagements with the Eritreans or with the Egyptians, they use whatever assets they have. But the Pretoria Agreement makes it abundantly clear that no such hostile activities will be allowed in Tigray. And I have reason to believe that whatever signs there are, they should not be directed against any part of Tigray, as long as the Pretoria Agreement works.
How about the rising tensions between Ethiopia and Eritrea? What's your take?
My take is, I don't want the people of Tigray to be caught in such a mess. And it's very unfortunate that some of my colleagues don't seem to have that in mind, or they seem to be intent on taking advantage of whatever vacuum there is. And all I can say is it's going to be way more disastrous than one can possibly imagine. And I don't want any conflict to happen between Eritrea and Ethiopia. And if that happens, I don't want that to happen to involve the people of Tigray. But hope that this won't happen is all I can do right now. That's why we're trying to make sure that the Pretoria Agreement is implemented and fully, without the kinds of not just hiccups, but also clear violations that are unfolding in Mali and other parts of Tigray.
What's your government doing to implement the Pretoria Agreement before anything between Ethiopia and Eritrea happened?
Look, we have sent a new team to work on that, but it all depends on how stable we are. With the people in the top brass engaged in dismantling the interim administration itself, to say that the interim administration will do this and that will be quite a luxury. We haven't done enough simply because we've been distracted all along. It has been a deliberate decision by this faction, the TPLF and their supporters within the armed top brass.
Do you think you do your own to bring the IDPs back to their homes?
Yes, we are trying to do our own. If conflict erupts, what are we going to do? You can just call on up you can say so in so many words that IDPs should return, but the return of IDPs requires some kind of coordination, right?
Of course.
So in the absence of authority in not just in southwestern Tigray and central Tigray, now eastern Tigray, and of course next would be Mekelle or other parts of Tigray, what sort of action would you expect? But we have sent a delegation working with the federal government and with the international community to work on that particular assignment. This should have been everybody's assignment. But there appears to be little or no appetite on the part of the people who are hell-bent on snatching power at all costs, including at the cost of the people and at the cost of the IDPs.
All right, finally, it's been almost 2 years since you assumed office.
Almost 2 years.
What did you judge?
No, I'm not here to give you a laundry list of things we have done. At least we have created a situation where people realize that unless we change the way we do politics in Tigray cannot not just achieve its self-determination rights, but more importantly, its survival will be at stake. So at the heart of this sense of change are the youth, 70-75% of the population, and the reaction towards setting the clock back on such a change is absolutely impossible. At least I believe that the interim administration's efforts to put in place an inclusive administration have resulted in an awakening where the people who still want to keep on harping with the same string are not welcome here. And of course, I regret the fact that rather than focusing on things that matter, like the return of IDPs, the restoration of Tigray, constitutionally mandated territory, and all that, we've been squabbling over meaningless power exercises. It's very unfortunate. So my last remark is, I still continue to call on the people who have a vested interest in maintaining the Pretoria agreement to step up to the plate and call a spade a spade.
No. Wait, what, I mean, isn't it too much? I mean, 2 years for political awareness and to call upon people.
No, I'm not going to give you a long list of things. We have achieved so many things economically, socially, and all that. But this is nothing to write home about. Why would I give you a list of things that we have done when the list of things which we should have done is quite big, quite large?